We have always used the resources of the earth to supply the needs of our world. Oil, natural gas, coal, and hydroelectric. Earth resources that provide the energy our world runs on. Energy which now seems to be in short supply. So now we are drilling for another Earth resource, geothermal energy, the heat of the Earth. Geothermal is at work in various areas of the globe, such as the Philippines, Italy, Japan, Iceland. They all have geothermal production underway or in development. But the geological conditions necessary for producing geothermal energy are rare. In most places, the heat of the Earth is far too deep to be reached by drilling. Finding areas where the heat has risen close to the surface is the first step in the development of a geothermal field. And it begins with the power of knowledge and the work of a geologist. Gene Sumicht is involved in the search for this new Earth resource.
As an exploration geologist, I'm involved in finding and outlining a prospect area for geothermal resources. There are really three things that we do. We look for the heat itself, we look for the effects of the heat, and we look for the causes of the heat. Working with stereo photos, that's one of the basic steps in figuring out what's going on in an area geologically. The Earth is relatively layered. Its central core is an extremely dense, probably nickel iron material, and there's an interface between the mantle and the crust, and that interface between the mantle and the crust are where most magmas are generated. The magma, molten rock, is generated like a bubble, and it's less dense than the material in the mantle, and it will rise into whatever permeable or fractured zones exist in the crust. It will exist as a chamber of molten rock if you can get to that heat source and get to the waters that are circulating and being heated around that source. That's the kind of stuff we go after.
It's a big job. It takes a team of highly trained geologists and engineers who become primarily involved in the production phase, where their knowledge of fluid mechanics and system design is all important. Like Paul Atkinson, he's an engineer who uses technology to harness the heat source.
At a very simple level, what the engineer does is he uses existing scientific principles and existing engineering principles to design systems that work.
The primary interaction happens when wells get drilled and when there is information that Paul can feed to me and I can feed back to Paul. The final step is assembling all the information from a certain specific site. You can use the map as a base to put all kinds of geophysical, geochemical, and geologic data. You put all this information down and you tend to look for areas that the combination looks good. That's where the computer comes in. It aids a lot in processing the data and assembling all the information into an interpretable picture.
Nature has endowed our planet with a wealth of resources, but the riches of the Earth are not limitless. We cannot be certain how long geothermal energy will last. Currently, we're exploring only those areas with sufficient heat to generate electricity. But geothermal can be applied to other low-energy uses, such as heating homes and various industrial applications, thereby extending the usefulness of geothermal and the lifetime of other resources.
I got into the geothermal energy business because I felt it was an energy alternative that had to be explored. There's an awful lot of heat in localized areas that the Earth has to offer, some of which have never been probed. It's remarkable how many jobs a geologist can create just by waving his hand at a map, but it's also remarkable how many jobs a geologist can lose simply by making a mistake. It almost gets down to a feeling level.
In southeastern California, near the Mexican border, lies one of the richest agricultural regions on Earth, Imperial Valley. And now another resource is coming out of this Earth. For Imperial Valley has been explored and found to harbor a potentially vast geothermal resource. This is one of Imperial Valley's first geothermal wells. More will follow. Engineers are closely monitoring the operation of this well to better understand the unique production problems encountered.
As a reservoir engineer, it is my job to advise my management on how much energy the geothermal resource contains and how can we most effectively get as much energy from the system in the most economic way. Most geothermal wells produce from a liquid reservoir. By the time that fluid reaches the wellhead at the surface, you actually have a combination of steam and water. The steam and water is run through a large vessel called a separator, which does nothing more than separate the steam from the water. And so what you have is you have steam coming out at the top of the separator and water coming out at the bottom. The steam is what you need to drive the turbine. So you'll take the steam and pipe it down through some pipelines to a turbine. The Imperial Valley has been called the Saudi Arabia of the geothermal industry. The current limitation is the problem of high saline fluids. Brines that have salt contents equal to or greater than that in seawater. The limiting factor is to be able to produce these fluids continuously over long periods of time without having your system clog up and scale up. Scale is what happens when the chemicals in the brine precipitate or come out of solution. And you end up with some particles, with some hard stuff. And that hard stuff can either be carried along with the liquid, or it can attach itself to the side of the pipe.
There are also problems encountered when drilling. The high temperatures and hard rocks found in geothermal are far greater than in oil or natural gas drilling.
We're trying to drill wells in very hot, hard rock. You know, our current problems are those of applying and adapting existing technology to a new geological and new technological environment. There's been a lot of research done in trying to improve drilling technology.
With energy in great demand, even with the high cost of research and technology, it all adds up to a costly necessity.
If you can drill a well for under $1 million, you're really doing a good job, especially with the consideration of all of the regulations and all of the extra care that you take to prevent blowouts, to have good casing jobs, to make sure that nothing goes wrong.
The geologist works closely with the drilling crew. It's his job to know the kind of rock formation they have penetrated. The shaker tables allow the geologist to evaluate the progress of the well. Here, samples of rock are recovered from the bottom. From these samples, he recreates what the rock formation looks like thousands of feet below the surface.
We're dealing with rocks that are unlike the ones that oil and gas technology deals with. We're dealing with rocks that you have to invent new methods of sensing.
Whether you're an engineer or a geologist, you're operating in a technological area where we have little experience. And so you have to be able to look at what you know with other systems and apply it to a completely new problem. The thing that makes it so exciting is that you're there and you can make a difference. And that takes imagination, a very good grounding in basic science, and you've got to really understand what you're trying to do.
Yes, it takes not just science and technology, but imagination. For a geothermal company is developing a new energy resource. They are pioneering a new energy alternative.
Once you start producing your resource, then it becomes a problem of reservoir management to try to make sure you can maintain productivity. We need to keep track of how the wells are producing. We need to keep track of how the reservoir is responding. The pressure goes down, the temperature gets colder, and it's our job to keep track of that and to try to understand why it's going down and to decide whether or not that's good or bad.
Midnight on Rig 27. They're pulling up the bit. The geologist has been called. They think the geothermal zone has been penetrated, and he must decide if the well should be encased.
When geothermal fluids are finally produced, the bottom part of the casing has to be cemented firmly in firm, competent rock so that it won't erode around the bottom and the casing won't leak, so that you can control the well.
Go ahead and encase it.
The future for geothermal is still uncertain. Some say the entire southwestern United States could derive all its energy from the heat of the earth. Others believe geothermal can never supply more than 1% of our energy needs. It all depends on the advances technology may make and on the new areas exploration may uncover. But what is certain is that geothermal is at work. It's with us today. This is the Geysers, the largest geothermal field in the world, located 90 miles north of San Francisco. Natural steam is being harnessed here, helping to run much of Northern California. Operated by Union Oil, the field is currently generating up to 1 million kilowatts of electricity, saving us about 1 million gallons of oil a day. Geothermal has a minimum impact on the environment, but it does have an effect. Noise, development, and even the earth pollutes. It's known as hydrogen sulfide, or H2S. It's only a small part of the steam emitted. It sometimes can smell like rotten eggs. Most agree it's just a minor irritant. But to some, any pollution is too much.
It is a type of natural pollution. People who go and bathe in hot springs and who walk around Yellowstone National Park are exposed to H2S. But it's the level that we're concerned with.
All of our power plants that we are constructing now are being designed to remove most of the hydrogen sulfide from the steam that is vented to the air.
You have to be made aware of the choices. The demand for energy continues to expand, and the supply of energy continues to decline.
We, as a country, need to decide where we want our energy sources to come from, what kind of a future we want, what kind of a society we want to be in 50 years. What we're really talking about is the conversion of our society and technology from one which is based on depletable resources to one which is based on renewable resources.
I think the eventual trade-off will be, what are we willing to pay and what are we willing to do to get what we want?
In the Imperial Valley, it has been possible to engineer our development plan in such a way that it is completely compatible with local agricultural needs.
So the future for geothermal like our country's future, depends on these decisions. How we balance our need for energy with other valuable needs. The need for wilderness areas, the need for clean air and quiet fields. How we handle these trade-offs will decide the kind of life we'll have tomorrow. The success of geothermal has shown that man and the earth can work together.
We cannot continue to rely on the same depletable energy resources. They will be gone. What we seek to do is to buy time for new sources of energy. Geothermal energy will help that.
It's not going to meet all of our energy needs. It's not the big answer to the energy problem.
But then, what is the answer? Perhaps it's people, all of us working together, putting differences aside and our ideas together. Turning ideas like harnessing the heat of the earth into realities. The power of the earth at work tonight to light our world tomorrow.